Good morning. Welcome back to yet another section of Indian writing in English. We completed first three poems in the first module. The second module consists of prose and short fiction. Today we are going to begin the ninth lesson, The Weed, written by Amrita Preetham. Amrita Preetham is one of the best known Punjabi authors and poets. She wrote fiction and non-fiction, poetry and essays. She has over 100 works to her name and had been honored with some of the highest awards in the country, including the Sahitya Academy, Bharatiya Jnanapith and Padma Vibhushan. Amrita Preetham was born in British India in Gujranwala, Punjab, which now falls under Pakistan. She moved to Lahore with her father when she was 11 after her mother's death. She had been betrothed to Preetham Singh in her childhood and she married him in 1936 at the age of 16. He was the son of a leading hosiery merchant of Lahore's Anarkali Bazaar and an editor. It is from him that she gets her last name Preetham. However, her marriage wasn't a happy one and she left him in 1960s. After her mother's death, Amrita found solace in writing. Her first publication was an anthology of poetry, Amrita Lehran. As British India was divided into independent India and Pakistan, Amrita moved from Lahore to New Delhi. Her poem, Aaj Aangan Van's Shan, expresses her sorrow and horror over the violence accompanying the partition. Amrita worked at Lahore radio station until partition. In India, she worked with All India Radio. Though she wrote in Hindi and Punjabi, her works became so popular in the 1960s. They were translated into many languages including English, Danish, Japanese, French and Mandarin. Many films were inspired by her novels, the best known being Pincher, which released in 2003 and won the Filmfare Best Art Direction Award and National Film Award Special Jury Award. Some others are the 1965 movie Kadambari, which was based on her book, and Dharti Sagar Te Sippi Than and Daku was based on Unadi Kahani. The Punjab Ratan Award by the Government of Punjab is awarded to achievers in the field of art, literature, science, technology, culture and politics. Amrita was the first to receive it. Amrita was the first woman to win the renowned award. She won in 1956 for her poem Sune Head, that means messages. The poem is considered to her magnum opus. In 1986, Amrita Preetham was nominated to the Rajya Sabha. Noted lyricist Gulzar released an audio album, Amrita recited by Gulzar, in the year 2007. Her autobiography, The Revenue Stamp, was banned by Punjabi University, Patiala. She made no bones about her fondness for the cigarette. That is the reason behind it. She is known as the most important voice for the women in Punjabi literature. Let us go through Amrita Preetham's The Weed. A brief summary. The Weed is a beautiful short story of a rustic girl. It's a beautiful short story of a rural girl. Ankuri, the protagonist, is a typical Indian village girl, black, young and beautiful, having a body with rippling muscles impregnated with the metallic resilience of a coiled spring. Simple, uneducated and superstitious, she was married as the second wife of an old, short, loose-jawed man. A victim of a patriarchal society and forced to marry by parental choice, Anguri believes it is the weed given by a man that makes a girl fall in love, which is a sin. At the end, she realizes that she herself is a victim of the weed, the natural inclination of a girl for the man she loves. A classic conflict between the inhuman patriarchal code and a girl's basic instinct anchored in her sexual identity. Amrita Preetham's deep understanding of the human mind helps make Anguri an unforgettable character in literature. So I think you got an idea about at least our protagonist in the story, The Weed. Who is the protagonist? Yes, Anguri. She is the protagonist in the story, The Weed. Then we already understood she is a rustic girl, she is a rural girl, she is coming from a village. Then she is black, young and beautiful girl. At the same time, she is very simple, uneducated and superstitious. She believes in her culture of their village. Then she is a victim of patriarchal society and forced to marry by parental choice. Then Anguri believes is the weed given by a man that makes a girl fall in love, which is a sin. At the end of the story, she also realizes that she herself is a victim of the weed, the natural tendency of a girl for the man she loves. So we can see here a classic conflict between the inhuman patriarchal code and a girl's instinct anchored in her sexual identity. There is no doubt it is Amrita Preetham's deep understanding of the human mind helps make Anguri an unforgettable character in literature. Okay, so we can go through the textbook. So all of you please take the page number 54 in your text. Anguri was the new bride of the old servant of my neighbor's neighbor. Every bride is new for that matter, but she was new in a different way. The second wife of her husband, who could not be called new because he had already drunk once at the conjugal well. Okay, you can note it down. Drunk once at the conjugal well means married once already. As such, the prerogatives of being new went to Anguri only. Prerogative means privilege. As such, the prerogatives of being new went to Anguri only. This realization was further accentuated when one considered the 5 years that passed before they could consummate their union. Okay, so I told you the weed, actually the weed, it is jingly booty. The weed, actually it is jingly booty in Punjabi. It is a famous short story written by Amrita Preetham. Once again I repeat, Jungly Booty in Punjabi. Then here the narrator of the story is Bibi. We will meet him. We will meet her. The narrator of the story is Bibi. So here the story, the Veed, starts with the marriage of Anguri. I think you already got the clear picture of Anguri. She is a village girl or rustic girl. She is very simple, uneducated, black, young and beautiful. She is forced to marry a man. Then we can see that the Veed starts with the marriage of Anguri. Anguri is the main character of this story. She is the protagonist. Anguri is a village girl. In her tender age, she is married as a second wife to Prabhati. Prabhati is her husband's name. So she was the second wife of Prabhati. Okay. Then I told you, but their marriage was fixed, but after 5 years they started to live together. Okay. About 6 years ago, Prabhati had gone home to cremate his first wife. When this was done, Anguri's father approached him and took his wet towel, wringing it dry. A symbolic gesture of wiping away the tears of grief that had wet the towel. There never was a man, though, who cried enough to wet a yard and a half of calico. Calico means a printed cotton cloth. It had got wet only after Prabhati's bath. The simple act of drying the tear-stained towel on the part of a person with a nubile daughter was as much as to say, I give you my daughter to take the place of the one who died. Don't cry anymore. I have even dried your wet towel. Okay, I told you Anguri, she is a village girl. She is the main character of this story. Then in her tender age, she is married as a second wife to Prabhati. Then Prabhati is a recent widower who comes to his village for the funeral rites of his first wife. Then Prabhati reached at his village for the funeral rites of his first wife. Then at that moment, Prabhati was in deep grief, and then we can see that at the moment Anguri's father met Prabhati and requested Prabhati to accept Anguri as a new wife. Okay, as the result, Anguri became the second wife of Prabhati. Okay, so the marriage was happened at the tender age of Anguri. Then there is no voice for Anguri to select her husband. Actually, her father decided to select Prabhati as Anguri's husband. Okay. Then this is how Anguri married Prabhati. However, their union was postponed for 5 years for two reasons: her tender age and her mother's paralytic attack. When at last Prabhati was invited to take his bride away, it seemed he would not be able to, for his employer was reluctant to feed another mouth from his kitchen. But when Prabhati told him that his new wife could keep her own house, the employer agreed. So I told you Anguri's father met Prabhati at the time of his first wife's funeral rites. Then Anguri's father requested Prabhati to accept Anguri as a new wife. Then they already fixed the marriage, but it is not possible for it is just not possible to bring it is not possible for Prabhati to take Anguri to his house because there are two reasons. Then what are the two reasons? Actually, her age was the main problem. She was at the tender age. That is the first problem. Then the second problem, her mother's paralytic attack. So because of these two reasons, we can see that they waited for another 5 years. Then after the 5 years, they started to live together. Okay. So I told you Anguri was a dark, beautiful young girl with a perfectly healthy body. Then after the 5 years, they started to live together. Then at first Anguri kept parda from both men and women, but the veil soon started to shrink until it covered only her hair, as was becoming to an orthodox Hindu woman. She was delight to both ear and eye, a laugher in the tinkling of her 100 angle bells and 1,000 bells in her laughter. What are you wearing, Anguri? An anklet. Isn't it pretty? And what's on your toe? A ring. And on your arm, a bracelet. What do they call what's on your forehead? They call it alibant. Nothing on your waist today, Anguri. It is too heavy. Tomorrow I will wear it. Today no necklace either. See, the clasp is broken. Tomorrow I will go to the city to get a new clasp and buy a nose pin. I had a big nose ring, but my mother-in-law kept it. So from these dialogues, we can easily understand Anguri was very proud of her silver jewellery, elated by the mere touch of her trinkets. Trinkets means ornaments. Everything she did seemed to set them off to maximum effect. Okay, so we can see that Anguri, she likes to wear ornaments. Then actually Prabhati, he is a domestic servant of the neighbor's neighbor of the writer Amrita Pritham. Even though Anguri got married to Prabhati, I told you they had to wait for 5 years because of two reasons. What are the two reasons? For this, one was Anguri's tender age, and the other reason was her mother's paralysis attack. Finally, after 5 years, Prabhati was invited and Anguri was sent with him happily. Then after 5 years, they started to live together. Now there came a new problem. What is the problem? Actually, Prabhati's employer objected in arranging of food for Anguri. So that is why Prabhati assured his employer that Anguri would manage hers. So like that, Prabhati managed the problem. Then both of them started to live together. Okay. Then we can see that after marriage, Anguri's new life in the city started. Actually, she was a village girl and she was shifted to the city. And Anguri started her life in the city. Then this was like a metamorphosis of her, and this changed her in a new woman. Then we can see that after her marriage, for some times she kept a parda from men and women and also used to stay indoor ways. Then gradually we can see that she removed her veil. Now Anguri started to enjoy the outside world. Even when she lived in the village, she was just opposite. Then when she reached in city, she started to change. Then she started to remove her veil, and she also enjoyed the outside world. Then we can see that now she started to wear jewelry and also began to show them off to other ladies. Then Bibi, our narrator, in the introduction I already mentioned about Bibi. Bibi used to talk to Anguri, and being a woman, she could easily understand Anguri's love for wearing and showing jewelry, her anklet with hundreds of bells, etc. Her neighbor Bibi and Anguri, they started to maintain a good relationship. Then Bibi already understood Anguri's love for wearing and showing jewelry and her anklet with hundreds of bells, etc. Okay, then you please take the page number 55. The weather became hot with the turn of the season. Anguri too must have felt it in her hut, where she passed a good part of the day, for now she stayed out more. There were a few huge neem trees in front of my house. Underneath them, an old well that nobody used except an occasional construction worker. The spilt water made several puddles, keeping the atmosphere around the well cool. She often sat near the well to relax. So we can see that near the narrator Bibi, we can see a neem tree, a few huge neem trees. Then there were a few huge neem trees in front of the narrator's house, in front of the Bibi's house. Then we can see that underneath these neem trees, an old well, then that nobody used except an occasional construction worker. So Anguri has the habit to spend the time near the neem trees. Okay, then she often sat near the well to relax. What are you reading, Bibi? Anguri asked me one day when I sat under a neem tree reading. Want to read it? I don't know reading. Want to learn? Oh no, why not? What's the wrong with it? It's a sin for women to read. And what about men? For them, it's not a sin. What told you this nonsense? I just know it. I read. I must be sinning. For city women, it's not sin. It is for village women. We both laughed at this remark. She had not learned to question all that she was told to believe. I thought that if she found peace in her convictions, who was I to question them? So here we already noticed the conversation between the narrator Bibi and Anguri. I already told you there were a few huge of neem trees in front of Bibi's house. Then we can also see a well near these neem trees. So Anguri has the habit to spend some time near the well. When Anguri sat near the well, those time we can see that Anguri and the narrator started to talk. Okay, so Gradually, Bibi could understand many new things about the village life through their occasional conversations. There were so many superstitions in villages, mainly about education, love, etc. Then, in the village, it is believed that education is a sin to a village girl, not to men or city women. Even our protagonist Anguri also believes. That is why she says education is sin for women. Not on it is sin for only women in village. It is not applicable for men in the village and also the women in cities. Okay, so there was also a belief that it is a great sin for women to fall in love with her husband except through the intervention of her father. Okay, we can go through it. So anyway, whatever the beliefs of Anguri, our narrator Bibi, she doesn't want to change. She doesn't want to question her beliefs. Okay, her body redeemed her dark complexion and intense sense of ecstasy always radiating from it. A resilient sweetness. They say a woman's body is like a lump of dough. Some women have the looseness of kneaded dough, while others have the clinging plasticity of leavened dough. Rarely does a woman have a body that can be equated to rightly kneaded dough, a baker's pride. Anguri's body belonged to this category. Her rippling muscles impregnated with the metallic resilience of a coiled spring. I felt her face, arms, breasts, legs with my eyes and experienced a profound languor. I thought of Prabhati, old, short, loose-jawed, a man whose stature and angularity would be the death of Euclid. Suddenly, a funny idea struck me. Anguri was the dough covered by Prabhati. He was her napkin, not her taster. I felt a laugh welling up inside me, but I checked it for fear that Anguri would sense what I was laughing about. I asked her how marriages are arranged, where she came from. So, we can see here Anguri, she is a typical village girl. She was a dark, beautiful young girl with a perfectly healthy body. But what about her husband? Have you remembered the name of her husband? Yes, Prabhati. So Prabhati, he was just opposite to Anguri. He was a mature aged person with a short height and loose jaws. There was no similarity between Anguri and her husband Prabhati. Then I tell you, the narrator Bibi and Anguri, they found the time to converse. So here, a girl when she is 5 or 6 adores someone's feet, he is the husband. How does she know it? Her father takes money and flowers and puts them at his feet. That's the father adoring, not the girl. He does it for the girl, so it's the grief herself. But the girl has never seen him before. Yes, girls don't see. Not a single girl ever sees her future husband. No, she hesitated. After a long, pensive pause, she added, "Those in love, they see them." Do girls in your village have love affairs? A few. Those in love, they don't sin. I remembered her observation regarding education for women. They don't. See, what happens is that a man makes the girl eat the weed and she starts loving him. Which weed? The wild one. Doesn't the girl know that she has been given the weed? No, he gives it to her in a pan. After that, nothing satisfies her but to be with him, her man. I know, I have seen it with my own eyes. Whom did you see? A friend. She was older than me. And what happened? She went crazy, ran away with him to the city. How do you know it was because of the weed? What else could it be? Why would she leave her parents? He brought her many things from the city. Clothes, trinkets, sweets. Trinkets means a piece of jewelry. Where does this weed come in? In the sweets. Otherwise, how could she love him? Love can come in other ways. No other way here, no other way. What her parents hated was that she was that way. Have you seen the weed? No, they bring it from a far country. My mother warned me not to take a pan or sweets from anyone. Men put the weed in them. You were very wise, sir. How come your friend ate it? To make herself suffer, she said sternly. The next moment, her face clouded, perhaps in remembering her friend. Crazy. She went crazy. The poor thing, she said sadly. Never combed her hair, singing all night. What did she sing? I don't know. They all sing when they eat the weed. Cry too. The conversation was becoming a little too much to take, so I retired. So I told you the narrator Bibi and the protagonist of the story Anguri, both of them spent the time to speak each other, to talk each other. Then gradually Bibi could understand many new things about the village life through their occasional conversations. There were so many superstitions in villages, mainly about education, love, etc. In the case of education, we already understood it in detail from Anguri. I think all of you remembered it well. Anguri believes, not only Anguri, the villagers, they already believe education for women, it is a sin. It is a great sin. But in the case of men, it's not a sin. Okay. So, then what about love? In the village, it was believed that education is a sin to village girls, not to men or city women. There was also a belief that it is a great sin for woman to fall in love with her husband except through the intervention of her father. That is the sin. Okay. The tradition of the village is that a girl child, when 5 or 6, adore someone's feet. She, a girl child, she is adoring someone's feet at the age of 5 or 6. In this, she is directed by her father's wishes because he was placed money and flowers at the man's or boy's feet. In this way, it is decided whom the girl shall later marry. So actually, the decision was taken by a girl child's father. Okay, according to his wish, the girl child is forced to adore the flowers on someone's feet. Okay, so the exceptions, those girls who have love affairs are thought to have eaten of a mysterious wild weed that an intending man has placed in a sweet or pan and given them to eat. and except this any girl they already fall in love with someone, definitely they believe that it is because of wild weed. The particular person he would give the weed through the pan or any sweet. Anguri has been a girl in her village in such a situation. Anguri has seen a girl in her village in such a situation. That girl was her friend, and she says that the girl sang sad songs a lot and never combed her hair and acted otherwise oddly. Anguri regards this a very unfortunate situation and is glad apparently that she is married to Prabhati. Then and even we can see that in the case of Anguri's husband, the old man Prabhati, who does not always live at her home, because you already knew it well, he is a servant and eats at his employer's household. So Anguri told her that her mother already warned her not to take the pan or betel leaf from anyone because because weed is the matter of love. So she didn't take any pan or sweet from others because her mother already warned her not to take a pan or betel leaf from anyone because the weed is the matter of love. So I think all of you understood the story. Actually we covered till the page number 57. The rest of the story we will continue in the next class. We will meet in the next class with the rest of the short story, The Weed, written by Amrita Breedam. Thank you.